No.
You want to print it out?
Hey, hi John. How are you? Okay, good. You look pretty good in person. Just doing good.
Doing okay. Excuse my dress and my house clothes.
I can't tell where leg it is.
Yeah, I can't put pants on yet. What's the other leg?
Is it that neat? I guess that looks a little more puppy.
Yeah. Feel better.
Sorry, I want to get the clothes.
There it is, bring my walker.
That's what it is.
Tape
Black and blue.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, feel better.
Was that too much?
It's good about drink today, I thought.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, a lot of it's.
You're all set, member?
You know, a little behind ball, like the timing in terms of the calendar.
Are we ready?
Feels like we're a little behind on that.
I mean, we've, you know, something the meeting didn't help. It's nice that we have
Roger?
Ready, you ready?
more time between the April and May meetings than we typically do.
Can you hear us?
Council members.
So the truth and taxation.
Well, no, just because it's like
We
May first on a
Get some-
Thursday or something, so the second Wednesday is.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't hear anybody at your end.
You can't hear us, Mayor Burke? Mayor Burke? Are your headphones still plugged in from earlier?
The answer is no.
Okay, take it.
Are you? Cameron, can you hear us?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can
so-
hear.
You can hear us, okay, so it's on the mayor's end.
Hi. Molly,
Yeah, the audio is on your end. We can hear you.
you can. Okay.
We
I,
can-
Ask him if his headphones are still plugged in.
and I can't hear any of you. That's very odd.
Are you still connected to like some headphones or something?
No.
Is
Yeah,
your volume turned up?
how's that? Give me a test.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Okay, my mistake. Are we, Jen? are-
Ready?
Go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, welcome to the special town council meeting of April 24th, is 2025. Excuse me. We're here today to listen to and dialogue with the public on how the town of Alva should react to an opportunity to purchase OS, after which the town council will discuss the future of OS and possibly make a decision to buy it for the town, making a firm bidding offer to the diocese, or maybe not. So this is in essence a continuation of last week's meeting. It's a continuation, not a rerun. At that meeting, the town council listened carefully to all those who spoke and read the inputs from those who sent in comments. Further, we have since gone over the notes from that meeting, both our own and the minutes that the staff produced. That being the case, and in the interest of time, I request that points brought up last week not be repeated. We've all absorbed those. One element of this situation that distressed me is the degree of distrust by many spokespersons that town council would not act in the interest of the community, which extends beyond just ACE. I want to point out that all of us are resident citizens of this town, and we're charged with acting in the interest of the town. But if person A in the town wants something that person B doesn't, we have to use our judgment to decide what to do. That's our job. In a small community like this, many of us know each other. We go by first names, not titles. We meet on the trail or the lift in informal settings. That's a pretty nice environment, which is part of the joy of living here. There seems to be a concern that when the management of the town changes, as it surely will over time, a future administration could be much less friendly towards ACE and curtail or significantly limit the use of that building. I note that there doesn't seem to be a similar concern about the church changing their position with a change in leadership, which is a process that's really underway right now at the very top level. So to alleviate some of those concerns, I sent a letter to Sarah yesterday saying, laying out some principles the town would commit to, and these include a long-term lease to ACE, the right of first refusal to ACE for OLS should the town choose to sell it, a notice to the diocese to allow continued use booking of OLS and written commitment to honor reservations after a purchase, ensure that OLS remains an inclusive multi-use facility guided by public input and policy, and prevent it from being limited to the scope of any single private entity. And established a shared use agreement to ensure that OLS remains a hub for the arts, culture, environmental stewardships, education, and recreation. And a near-term lease through the end of this year to continue all programs uninterrupted. As I said last week, I don't think you'll notice any change in the ownership. So here where I would like to have the session operate. Open discussion. Please be civil. Please step to the podium when you're going to speak. Limit your statements to 3 minutes. You can ask questions if you want. All who want to get to speak, but please don't be repetitive. If your point has already been made, don't feel compelled to repeat it again. And with that, I believe that Jen has organized a series of persons to come to the podium.
Yeah, so present mayor, we have one individual that would like to make a public comment that I know of so far, which is Jerry Oyama. Jerry, you can come up. And then after that, we'll go to the folks that are online. So if you're online, if you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should have a raise your hand option. If you want to click on that now, Brooke will later enable you to be able to speak.
Jen, before we transition, Mayor Burke
I'm sorry. Yes.
It's okay.
Yes.
I think last time we started this,
Yes.
we went to the different members to see if they had something to say.
Sorry.
I chose not to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would like to do that again. And since I can't see, I'll have to assume that you're sitting in the same order you did last time. So on my far left was Carolyn. Would you like to say something, Carolyn?
Not at this time, Mayor Burke.
Okay, and next to Carolyn was Dan last time.
Yep. And I would like to say something. And the reason I didn't say anything last time when we did this was I really wanted to get input first, because I felt in the spirit of what that meeting was supposed to accomplish or hopefully accomplish, it was about listening to everybody in the community first. But I'd like to share a few comments and thoughts, because last week, at least for me, I was reacting and responding as quickly as I could to take down notes. I opened everybody's email that I've received, and it was fast and furious, and it was 2 hours of onslaught. But all that is reaction and response, which isn't really explaining to you, at least what I feel is important. And I think I owe that to you, but we haven't had the opportunity to do that for all the various reasons that have made many people unhappy. So I just want to share a few things that I hope might shape the conversation and end on a positive note. The first thing I want to share, and she may be unhappy with me saying this, but I would like to say that the most courageous thing I saw happen last week was not the very powerful comments that came in from the public, but it was Carolyn standing up to address what I can only say was an intimidating crowd to state what she felt. And I thought that was quite a brave thing to do, and I greatly admire quiet bravery, and I think you know you have a friend.
Thank you.
I've categorized what I feel are the public comments and or dissatisfactions to this point into 4 areas. And I think this captures what I have been hearing, what I've read, and the conversations I've had since last week. They usually are either the town has not taken any action in the past, community center wise, and why is it so slow? And that's how come this has never happened before? To which I don't have an answer. I was never on the town council, but I was watching for 10 years. Or we're taking too much action and it's going too fast. So those 2 things kind of come together. The next category was taxpayer money, and why are we spending it on this? And the last one was, and arguably as important as the others, was either support for ACE or concern about ACE's welfare. That's how I've categorized and processed this to the best of my ability. So the town, I'm not going to be long-winded, but I do have a couple things to get through that I think are important to share. Town of Alto's pursuit of a community center has been well established and supported for a very long time. This was one of the plans that I've seen in my time here, and it looks like a prop from the next Star Wars installment. It's a beautiful building, but it's quite expensive. As I look at that and I compare that with this opportunity that, if I may, fell out of heaven into the lap of either ACE or the town, that changes that dynamic. Because to me, I think suddenly it's not an over expenditure of tax dollars for this reason. We are getting a building, if the town chooses to build it, for a fraction of the cost it would take to build that building right now at this moment. Neglecting the time it would take to build that if we could turn dirt today, and the cost of any land under it, because some land is materialized here and there. The town's talked about this before. Those are all quite expensive things, and this becomes very cheap. And in my, relatively speaking, and it's a community center for all, which is how I'm going to end. But some quick public math, bear with me, was this economical solution to not a perfect solution for a community center for all, then allows the town, by solving that problem, which we've talked about, I've been told for 30 years, we've been trying to solve this problem. And I've only been back here in town for 10 years, so I stick with my limited time. It allows us to then pursue the next order of priority business for the town as agreed upon in public meetings during these retreats and some of the other things we've done, which is Alta Central, which to me becomes this building. And if it becomes a more purpose-built building, because we're not trying to make it one building does everything, it allows us to, one, reduce the cost of that building when we do build it, and possibly share those costs with other entities, primarily in my mind, UDOT. I do not have the solutions to all that, but that's how you go forward in my mind. And I think that's a really great use of tax dollars, and I think it's a really great strategy to implement. Finally, though, I feel that the town has a responsibility to provide space, going back to OLS, and here's what I'll close on, to provide space for all. But primarily at this point, it is ACE. And I do think when we go forward, I really believe, I give the town a C for its ability to navigate, that's our grade, over the last 2 months. And I'm as responsible as anybody else for that. I wish it was a B, but it's a C. Maybe it's a C minus. I would really like to see us moving forward positively, especially with the leadership of ACE as we get into the way ahead, because the long-term relationship has to be positive. And that's all I wanted to share. Thank you for letting me take that amount of time.
Okay, moving to my right, Elise? You wanna
I don't
say?
have any. I don't have a
Okay.
comment at this time.
Oh, great, thanks.
You did great, Jim.
All right, John,
I think that those were thoughtful comments, Dan, and I like that you're thinking a couple steps ahead in terms of the impact on our ability to build other buildings and Yeah, one of the things that I got from, I guess, being at the budget meeting today was. I heard a lot about tax increases. The truth in taxation, I'm with that, I think we should do that on a regular basis. You know, raising the resort transient room tax, again, I am not really in favor of that, I think that the lodges are already being burdened sufficiently. I'm not really for any tax increase, I think we've been spending money. You know, pretty liberally, because we've had the money to spend, now we're going into a period where our money's gonna be tight. And I'm concerned about that, and then. The big revelation for me at this morning's meeting was the idea that if we build this other building, or that maybe it's a building here and on this spot. That's gonna be borne exclusively by property tax, that's a big deal. I just really struggle with that, you build a $6 or $7 million building and the property tax is gonna carry it, that seems pretty hard to me. So just, you know, telling you how I feel. There were a couple of things in the staff report, would it be okay to talk about that? You know, I thought the staff report was good, I got to the pros and cons though, and in the cons, there's no mention of the fact that we don't have to pay the $1 million. If Ace buys the building and conducts his building for itself, Ace is gonna pay for it. And for me, us spending $1 million of the town money to buy the building, that's a con. It's not a deal killer, but it's a con, and I have it written down as another bullet point under my little thing here. And you know, we could talk about exactly where we are in the cash flow. I know that the one you guys used at the budget committee today was sort of $450,000-ish after the purchase, 460, something in there. But we took out 170 grand of the FFKR recommendations. And we took out Mike's room. So really, it's a $220,000 adjustment to be sort of apples to apples.
I should have caught that this morning, I had that, and that's just in the general fund budget, it didn't get, it's in the general fund budget.
For Mike's room is,
But that's only it,
So
that's a small item.
it's a rounding error, but
Well,
you're right.
we've covered projects like that out of the building maintenance line items in recent years. I mean, those have grown. I liken it to, you know, driving a 9.5-year-old base model Subaru up down the canyon. It's not worth anything like this building, but it costs, my maintenance budget has increased in recent years.
So
So-
you put
so
that into the maintenance
we-
budget,
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
So I think originally, I had thought that we'd be down to maybe 180, 200,000. I get down to sort of 250,000, I'm gonna say, that's a rounding error, the slight difference between the two. But I think the point still stands that the $1 million is important. And I think it's important in terms of our flexibility going forward. It's a bit of a leap of faith to think that we're gonna do away with Alta Central and get everything in a new building here. And then I think we're gonna have, you know, significant opposition to paying for a new building exclusively with property tax. So it's gonna be a rocky road to build that building. So that makes me worry about our lack of financial flexibility. So I think it's a positive for the town that if Ace paid the $1 million, I think it leaves us just in a better, more flexible position. I can stop there.
John, I did try to address that in the second against argument. By saying the town has other financial needs in acquiring OLS would. I did not immediately enhance the town's provision of essential services, but, you know, I tried to address the, you know, the investment and the opportunity cost of that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay. Jerry, I think you were, sorry, you were interrupted, but I guess you're up.
Jerry Oyama. This is more of a question. At the last meeting, we talked about OLS being on Forest Service property and the restrictions that the Forest Service puts on the use of the building. And so what is the restriction for like community purposes or nonprofit or?
It's, yeah.
Church or community center?
Church or community center, basically what the current says now.
So basically no residential housing, no like.
Condos.
No, and no business, no
No
restaurants.
coffee shop, no.
And Dan, you were saying that if the town bought it, that in a while you could petition the Forest Service to have the land become freehold, become available as just a property that would have. And I was just wondering, doesn't that make us vulnerable if we have a council in the future that we go into tremendous debt and they see this as a property they could sell on the open market for condos and coffee shops, restaurants?
Well, I suppose, yeah, all things in the future are possible. I can't imagine, nor has there been historically at any time in the town's existence, a collective body that would get elected that would feel that it was appropriate to sell that for profit or to up their coffers. I mean, the heart of why I think the town, and I'm not the smartest person to talk about how that transaction of property transfer from the Forest Service to the town happens, except to say that it has happened historically, and as was informed by somebody from the public, I can't remember who, that they've actually done it for private as well, and I didn't know that. But so the mechanism clearly is there, and what I think that does for us is it provides the town, at least in my mind, this one more piece of property we're never gonna let go of. I can't imagine the town selling it, because in my mind, if we transfer Alta Central here through construction, that building's not worth saving. Let's not spend any money on it, and you can tear that building down, and now you have a piece of property that you can build 50 years from now for some capacity none of us can imagine, that becomes another opportunity for the town. Meanwhile, this building came at a song, truly relatively speaking, and it's a community center for all, and that's,
Right.
it's our responsibility to provide, I think, a community center.
But just to have, you were saying that it would increase the value, that it was a good investment,
I think so.
but we don't want it to be invested.
Well,
Right, I think
So-
go ahead.
So I think what Dan.
my champion.
Yeah, so we've participated in a conveyance, right? So the town owns the land under existing buildings. We've got a vacant 1.3 acres. It was conveyed to the town. Subsequent to an act of Congress, which sounds like a big deal, because it kind of is. And it came with a lot of strings attached, and I'm not sure whether it's a provision in the legislation or if it's like in the deed, but we are restricted from commercial use of the land that we got for our buildings.
So that's partially answered your question, I think, to the satisfaction you're looking for, which is it can't suddenly, there's no bait and switch by some future wild town council and mayor.
Well, let me just add a little bit here. I think that the bigger danger is that a future council decides to repurpose the building. And if the town had control of the land underneath, then some of these provisions, these restrictions that keep it a community center could potentially go away.
Right.
So it's not so much that the town would sell it to somebody who would build a restaurant, it's that the town would elect to repurpose the land.
Right.
And so from the ACE point of view, I think that represents the danger of going for the fee simple of the land underneath the building, because I think as soon as you do that, it's all about all the other things you can do with the building
Right.
other than ACE.
Exactly.
So I would hope that a future council we think long and hard about the necessity of going that direction.
That's a really
I
good,
think,
it's a good counterpoint because,
since we're kind of in public comment, and we're kind of starting a discussion. I think we need to finish letting everybody have a comment,
Sure,
sorry,
sure.
it's just part of it.
yeah,
Good
no,
point, Elise.
yeah,
We just,
because-
yeah, we just need to
well,
hold
he
our
asked me a
discussion
question and I
really.
started to engage, so.
Does anybody else that's present wanna make a public comment? If not, we'll go online. Come on up, say your name and try
My
to
name
limit it
is
to 3 minutes.
Andrew Gardner. And I remember in the last meeting, we were talking about how if the town takes the office over, that if first priority is the community center. I also remember some talk about when this building gets rebuilt, whether like possibility of town offices being down there temporarily, or there was talk about expanding public restrooms for people down there. And I just wonder how ACE would be able to operate in the capacity that they do with the space that they need if, let's just say, half of that open space was turned into public bathrooms. I remember Dan talking about people don't use outhouses. I think like the people who don't use outhouses are gonna be hard pressed to walk to the town center to use the bathrooms there, if that's an actual consideration. I use outhouses all the time. I'm just curious about all of that and whether it would be in the capacity that ACE needs if the town does operate it in the future and turns it into any of those things. Thank you.
Yes,
We have one online. And it's Evan. I just have his first name.
Evan Tobin, I'm guessing.
There's only one of them.
If he's on the phone, that's harder to.
Evan, *6 might work to unmute yourself. If you're on a phone.
Terry Watt.
There you go.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to, I had spoken at the first meeting, but I had submitted some comments for this meeting. I had submitted 3 documents. I don't know if they were handed out. I did click that I wanted them attached and submitted at the meeting. The 3 documents were the original proposal from Alta Community Enrichment to the town, where we requested funding, and we requested and we requested to be the Alta Arts Council to make dual status relationship with the town of Alta, and this was with the immediate goal of the organization to proceed with our nonprofit incorporation and our 501c3 application. And so I submitted that document, and was that attached to this meeting?
Yeah,
Yes.
so Evan, so I got one attachment. Were they all together as one PDF?
Yes, they
or
were
did you
all
try and
they were
attach
all in
multiple?
3.
Okay, then yes, the full council received that.
Okay, so the first 3 pages of that were the proposal that ACE made to the town. The 4th page there was the actual resolution in 1997, where the town council created the Alta Arts Council. And it is said there is hereby established an Alta Arts Council doing business as Alta Community Enrichment with the membership powers and duties as herein set forth. And within that, the objectives of the purposes of the Arts Council, was the purpose of this organization is to create opportunities for individual and group participation in community entertainment, education, arts, and special events. An initial objective is to incorporate as a nonprofit organization and apply for 501c3 status in order to qualify for a broader funding base. And we didn't, and we did in fact get that, and I included the document from the IRS dated May 27th, 1999, where we qualified, where ACE qualified for the 501c3 exemption. And what that does is it enables donors to fund our organization and reap benefits of the fact that ACE is a nonprofit with 501c3 status. So if people want to give money, they can do that and reap tax benefits. Like if $1 million is given, then there's substantial tax benefit to the donor. It also enabled us, the relationship as an Alta Arts Council also allowed ACE to get county grants, foundation grants, state art grants, corporate sponsorship, and community development block grants, many of which have been received at this point. I asked my accountant, and according to my accountant, if John gives us $1 million to the town, unless it's funneled through ACE in some way, there is no tax benefit. So it's substantially more money. And if anybody wants to get money, give money to ACE, and give money for the building maintenance in the future, the town's not going to be as good a candidate for those donations as ACE would be. So that's really a very strong reason I feel that ACE should buy and maintain the building. They've shown that they are good stewards of the building. They have maintained upkeep. They have suggested all the projects that need to be done. And I really hope that the town will realize this and let ACE go ahead and buy this building, since ACE is the Arts Council of the town of Alta.
Thank you, Evan.
Sure.
Okay,
Thank-
any other persons either online or in the room?
We have one more online.
Okay.
Jerry Weil.
Oh,
It just takes a minute for it to transfer over.
There he is. Muted.
Okay, now can you hear me?
yes.
We can.
Yeah, I spoke at the last meeting. I don't know if I have to repeat my bona fides, but
No, you don't.
so here's what I'm hearing, and I just want to make sure that I'm hearing it accurately. The town, as Dan said, feels the need to buy the building to use it as a community center. They would not really, if I again understand what I'm hearing, they really have no plan about how to use the building as a community center. The plan that I heard, I don't know if again I heard it clearly, is that that ACE would get a long-term lease, the amount of time that unspecified, and it wasn't clear to me if that lease were to be given to ACE, what the parameters of ACE's ability to operate without interference from the town might be. So I would be interested in getting a clearer picture from the council about if they decide to buy it, if you decide to buy it, what then comes next? And I would hope that you could be more specific than at least I've heard. Thanks.
Good comment.
Thanks.
Good comment.
Okay.
That's it I think that's it for public comment, Mayor.
Okay. All right, well, in that case, let's have a discussion. Jerry,
We have Sarah Schnedeker up next
Oh.
on the agenda. The presentation from ACE. Sarah?
Well, fewer people here today, so it's a little bit easier. Again, my name is Sarah Snedeker. I'm the current president of the ACE Board of Directors. And my intent today is to speak on behalf of the ACE Board, not only to the town council, but also to the community at large. First off, I want to acknowledge that this has been a long, arduous, and oftentimes emotional process for all parties involved in the potential sale of ACE over the past few months. And how wonderful is it that we have a place that so many in this community care so deeply for. I also want to acknowledge that the two entities, the town of Alta and ACE, both work at different speeds, and rightfully so. We understand that government needs to move at a slower pace. As an organization, ACE was working to move quickly on this opportunity in order to secure our home well into the future and to prevent everyone's worst case scenario from happening. In retrospect, these varying speeds may have contributed to any miscommunication and misunderstanding between the town and ACE. It was never our intent to have this situation create such a rift in our community. We simply wanted to see truth in the process and to ensure that our organization could continue to thrive and grow in order to serve the community that we so deeply love. In the past week, we have been able to gain some much needed insight and clarity into the town's intent for purchasing OLS. We are confident that both the town's and ACE's vision for the building can coexist, and that we will be able to enter into an agreement and partnership that is mutually beneficial. We feel that entering into a long-term master lease with the town at OLS will serve both parties. As an organization, we will work to ensure that OLS will serve as both a community center with a focus on creating a multi-use facility guided by public input and policy, and a home for ACE to see out our goals and mission well into the future. One more paragraph.
Take your time.
That's good.
Take your time.
Should the council vote to approve the purchase of Our Lady of the Snows, we will support the town in doing so with the belief that we can work together to enter into a long-term master lease for ACE to administer the building as a community center for the benefit of all of Alta's constituents and the broader Little Cottonwood Canyon community. We look forward to partnering with you on this endeavor and greatly appreciate your commitment to ACE and the well-being of our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's good.
Does anybody else from ACE or anything?
I guess I'd like to say a few things and address some of the public comments, and I know it's out of order, but I think if there were other public comments generated, I would welcome some discussion. So, I guess the way that I have looked at this entire traumatic event is that I think that Alta has wanted and the town has wanted and has planned for a community center for a long time, and a community center for all. And so that's what OLS is. ACE is one organization that would absolutely, I don't think ACE's use of OLS would change. I would anticipate that they would have as many events there as they have always had. I would like to see Sarah and ACE express themselves in that building in ways that perhaps they feel that they haven't been able to, whether it's painting the bathrooms purple, whatever it is you want. But like, I see that as a collaboration and something that should stand forward. My math suggests that the current use of OLS is 59% by ACE and 41% by the community. So this concept that ACE was the only holder and only user of OLS, it is incorrect. So I look at it as a community center, and I want community members to be able to utilize the building, including the Trump supporters of Little Cottonwood Canyon, or whoever they are, okay? So that's how I look at it. Jerry, the way I look at the land kind of coming in, and I may be wrong, going off my rocker here, but if we are to do a fancy land swap and then we're allowed to control, the town is allowed to control that piece of property, we may be able to make that building even better. What would we do with $1 million donation from ACE at that point? Could we actually build the building out the way that we all envision it? Could the top floor be this really lovely community space that ACE envisions? I don't know, but I look at that land swap and our ability to control that land as a very positive in making that building even better in the future. Andrew, it's never gonna be half bathrooms in there. You know, I pee outside too, and I don't think any town council is ever gonna vote to make half that building bathrooms. That would be absolutely crazy.
It was a concern.
Okay.
I know I started that, I apologize for throwing it that way.
Yeah, like, no way, not happening. Like, we're not gonna have enough money to, I don't know, but it's not happening.
We've also never talked about putting like temporary offices and like, we've never said that.
On the last meeting, it was brought up about possible uses for the space.
I think we were talking about Sarah maybe needing an office space because she's currently here, but we weren't ever saying.
And there was some talk about if we got control of the land under it, the potential to repurpose the building. I think there's some discussion of that, but.
Anything's possible 20 years from now, because we don't know what things look like, and opening up opportunity and having options is pretty critical in its land constrained space like this, where the pressures on the town will continue to increase.
But unfortunately for ACE, those options really represent its potential losing access to the space, because we have the land, we decide we need to build an office building on it, and somebody down the road decides that's more important
The
than
public
maintaining
outcry
the public
over the
space.
purchase here, I don't think any town council would survive having that space
Today.
turned over. You
Today,
think we might have a bigger backbone than all of us? I think it would be awful to be on the town council and say, hey, I want to turn that into some kind of space. I can't imagine surviving, taking the public outcry from that away from ACE.
And I would say, has ACE ever been under threat at any point with their ability to do what they're doing in the 30 years they've existed? I recognize it was the church's building. Okay, so if the answer is yes, part of our responsibility as a town, and I think anyone who comes to sit in these chairs, in particular the mayor and the staff, I think they'll always say we have a responsibility to the larger public. And ACE is a big part of that. And if you've been under threat in the past, what I would say is you're certainly going to be less under threat if it's owned by the town, which is comprised of us, than if it's owned by a church, any church, who knows what a church will do. So I support, and it's part of, Jerry, your question to finalize, the one question you had was, you know, what is the greater plan for the building? I don't think it has to have a bigger plan. I think that's actually not the right question. I think it's a collaboration between, at this point, the town and ACE. And it becomes, what does that joint vision look like going forward to best serve ACE? Because again, that's our responsibility here, is to provide space for you.
I think that's right. I think that it really comes down to, I mean, it's pretty clear that we should buy the building. If the town buys the building, the question is, would it be better operated by ACE subject to a long-term lease, a 30-year master lease on the building? Or would it be better operated by the town and have ACE just be one of several people that uses it? I think that it would be better for ACE to be operating the building. I think they're in a better position to operate the building. I think they will be inclusive. They've long been inclusive with respect to facilitating other events there. And I just think that ACE is sort of better equipped to know what's going on in the building and to operate the building. But it kind of like, if you get past the should ACE buy it or we buy it, and you want to think about us buying it, then I think the question is, should we let ACE operate it subject to a long-term lease, or should the town try to operate it itself?
Well, you had me at hello, seller. I think we should have a long-term lease with ACE, and I think it's important that they manage. There's a degree of overlap that's gonna have to happen, just as it's happened with the current property owner. There's an overlap. And I think we can increase the overlap And I think it's appropriate for ACE to take a bigger role because they are that responsible party. But what I don't agree with is them having to pay for maintenance. That's the responsibility of the town. I feel we own the building, we take care of the building for ACE because I think it's a gesture for ACE. I understand the opposition to this, but in my mind, maybe I'm a minority, we're doing this for ACE too. Amongst the Porcupine Appreciation Society and the Trump fan club, whatever else comes up here. And ACE can manage that space. I think they know how to do that better than anybody, because Sarah's the executive director and she's been running that building, I think, in a very real way for a very long time.
And if we go this master lease route, ACE would reimburse the town now for the cost of the building. The town would own the building now, so we don't have to get into how, what's the transfer price down the road. The town just already owns the building and doesn't need to spend $1 million of its own money to buy the building.
And I'm
So I
gonna
mean, that's a
call-
pretty compelling reason to me to do the master lease
And
solution.
I'm gonna say that I'm gonna take the slow government road and like actually like weigh the pros and the cons of all of that. And I'm personally not ready to comment or think about that because it's been so traumatic getting to this point that I have made it clear that ACE, I really support ACE and I want ACE to have a great relationship with OLS, but I'm not prepared to think about the details of all of those things. And
They
it has,
give ACE control of the building.
and it has no,
Well,
it has no
That's a-
bearing.
that's a statement. I don't
Right.
think we can make that statement. I think that's an unfair statement to make. I don't think we're trying to determine the control of the building by ACE at this meeting. I think support for ACE in the terms of long-term residency through a lease, I think, that's a lease, not e-lease, is part of what has to happen to ensure ACE gets what they need for stability. One of the things I've heard, I had a really wonderful conversation with an ACE board member yesterday for like an hour and a half. And I came away with a very positive sense of where they are, and I think, to me, I felt like there's trust building forward. Because I have some trust issues too, just to be frank. I had some trust issues based on what happened. I don't care about that. I care about going forward and ensuring that they have the stability that they want or the consistency that's required. And I think Elise is part of that, but I don't think we can talk about it here. And Elise is part of it too. Both of those can go together in my mind. In all seriousness, to your point, John, I think that's what we'll do. And my belief is, after this meeting happens, something's gonna happen at this meeting. And immediately after, these two parties are gonna start talking positively and sit down and work out the mechanics. And I can't say what they are, because I'm like you. I don't know enough about that to say what that architecture looks like. Because
Yeah,
I'm the least experienced person here
I think
on this side.
I think that, yeah, I agree with Dan. I think we need to first make a decision about, is the town gonna do this or not? Because I think everybody just needs to know that. We need to like get that figured out. I don't know enough about a master lease details. Like I would like to have Cameron talk about it. Like I don't know if we're ready to commit to a master lease right this meeting. I feel like there's more stuff that I need to hear. Especially from our legal counsel.
Well,
But yeah, I think that whatever we're doing, I think like Roger stated in his letter, we're talking about having a long-term lease. It's just a question of,
Right.
like, what does that long-term lease look at, like, and all the details. I don't know if we're gonna get to that point at this meeting. I feel like it's just,
I don't think we should get to that. I mean, it's.
Well, they sent us a draft, and they also sent us a memo about their outlook. I mean, they're trying to get us the information to make the decision. I think it's a pretty fundamental issue in terms of, what's gonna happen to the building, I think is pretty important in terms of should we buy the building? Having our strategy be, let's buy the building and we'll figure it out. That seems like, I'm not really comfortable with that. I think it'd be better if we had an ongoing strategy, and I think the question ultimately becomes, are you willing to give up control of the building to ACE? And I am. I think ACE having the master lease for 30 years would be the way I would go. And I think it's a question of, are we okay with ACE having control of the building for that period, or do we wanna be in control of the building because we think we're gonna do a better job managing the building than ACE will? And I think I don't see that we would do a better job. With all due respect to our staff, I think our staff has their hands full with a lot of other stuff. And running all of the overseeing every event that happens there, that seems like a extraordinary burden on the staff. I think we'd be way better off essentially subbing that out to ACE to do. And so I think that's an important consideration in terms of should we buy the building or not. It's hard to just go ahead and say, well, we wanna buy the building because it's shiny and bright, but we don't really know what we're gonna do with it. I think that's really an inappropriate expense of public money.
That's not what we're doing here, though. And the great thing about this agreement is okay. Just so you know, that's democracy in action. We don't have to have the same opinion.
Yeah.
I have not heard anyone here say, let's just buy the building, we'll figure it out later. I think we continue to lay out what we believe the building is for. And I think in the spirit of what you're talking about, but not the details, because ACE doesn't have the ability to give us all the details of what would work for them vis-a-vis how much control they should have versus us, any more than we are. But what has happened today, for all of us here, is ACE provided a couple of things that was important. Not only did their president stand up and lay out what you thought was important from a vision, but your body provided us information as a starting point to go forward. The mayor and the town provided the same thing back to ACE for the public to know, laying out what we think is at least the broad architecture of this in order to move forward. So I think those things are laid out. Furthermore, to your point, I think my staff is overworked too. But repeatedly when asked by us, they have all said 100% of the time, we can handle this building. So your
So maybe
interpretation of
that's a
mine,
viable alternative, I can see filling in the blanks on all the details being a down the road thing. But I'm just asking the fundamental question of, are we gonna run the building or we're gonna give ACE a lease and have ACE run the building? That seems like not a detail, that seems like the fundamental question to me.
I think you have to define that to some fidelity, and I don't have the ability to do that at this right here on the spot. But I will be quiet.
I do think that. I think there's a lot of potential in either arrangement. I do think. For ACE to provide a lot of the sort of management that ACE has provided in the past would be a benefit to the town. Which is not to say that's what the council should decide the town will do, but we are stretched thin. And I know we can make it work. If it's just gonna be us, we will absolutely make it work. But we've talked for a long time about the challenges of finding folks to do part-time work on our buildings and the town park. And I know that it's been a challenge to find somebody to do that work at OLS in the past as well. So whoever has that responsibility will to some extent be in the same boat.
But I feel that to the extent that we're comfortable, we should give ACE everything that we can in order to do that.
Yeah.
That's a non-binding statement, because I don't know what it means, but I'm certainly in favor of that. With this exception, we should pay for maintenance, because it's a town's responsibility. That's how I feel about towns. I don't want ACE paying for that kind of thing. They shouldn't have to any more than, the pro gondola people, whatever.
I think that our staff, if we gave them direction that we wanted to run the building, there's no doubt in my mind that they would do it and they would do a good job. It's a question of should we give them that direction? And or should we ask ACE to run the building for us for 30 years or more? And I think that it's in terms of like tasking the town staff with it, it's a question of should we? We could task the town staff to run it, but should we task the town staff to run it? And I would say the answer to that is no, because there's better uses of their time, including we're gonna design a new building apparently, and that's gonna be exciting, but it's gonna be all consuming. And I'm really excited that you have had some recent feedback with FFKR and that you're excited to move ahead in designing the building. That's gonna be an enormous amount of additional work for the staff, and I think that means it makes it even more sense to be willing to give control and responsibility for the building days.
The one thing I would add to that is, if we can't run this 2,000 square foot building, how the hell were we ever gonna do this? I watched
It's
town
nature
council,
of activity,
town
though.
council, just a minute, and it's like, if they can't run this, and we can't budget for this that's already built, how can we make any plans? And I believe in this town's ability to make plans, and I believe in our credit worthiness and the ability to bond and these things that I don't have any experience with. But I know that we can do them, and I believe we'll get there.
I guess some of my fears about, we've talked previously about ACEs morphing, right? So I think this really is a longer, more thoughtful discussion. 30 years is a really long time.
Yeah.
And so what happens if ACE changes? What happens if the community changes? What happens if they have this 30-year lease and now they think that OLS is too small and they only want to have 2 meetings a month in OLS and the building doesn't serve things well? So I would want a lease that has ACE is gonna hold 10 events there a month that are open to the public, or some kind of an agreement. You're like, no, that's not what a master lease is. And John, I don't own enough property to know what a master lease is. But for me, if we're buying it as the community center, and that's what it's for, I want it to be the community center. So I personally need a lot of time to think about what it means if you turn the building over to ACE. And 30 years is a long time.
But can I add one thing to that?
Why can't it just be 5 years? Why does it have to be 30 years?
Well, that's what they want. That's not us. That's what ACE is telling us. They want a longer lease rather than shorter, and we're willing to give it to them.
Oh, wait,
But
hold on, sorry, hold on, if you guys are gonna talk, just so the mayor and everyone online can hear you, you're gonna need to come up, cause they
Comments
can't.
done.
Yeah, and
Really?
that's the other thing is, we can have a discussion, but we're trying to.
We can't allow them to speak?
Well, no, the mayor most certainly can allow them to speak, we just need to make sure that we're hearing more.
But can I add something to this that's important to remember? I keep hearing over and over again the potential negativity or threat. I am not a negativity or threat-based person. I did that for 30 years. Here's what I see as also a possibility. If we provide the space for ACE, because it's our responsibility, and they take on a role, you know what could happen over 30 years? Their role could become more prominent. We could become a more strengthened community between the primary cultural community thing, as somebody here mentioned as well, and we all believe is already true.
Yeah.
It could become even stronger.
Right.
It's not all negative, damn it. I don't believe in that. And so, and I believe in ACE, and I believe in your executive director, and I can tell you 100% of my conversations with ACE board members have happened in the last 24 hours. Before that, I didn't really have any. And I will guarantee you, I will have a lot more conversations. Hopefully we can go skiing and hiking instead of talking for an hour and a half on the phone. But I believe in both of these entities. I just do.
Mayor, it
Yes,
sounds like some people from the public might wanna make additional comments and we have someone online. Do we wanna open public comment up again?
yeah, I think, let's do that.
Okay, so was there somebody that's trying to, yeah, come on.
That's really silly.
Was there anybody else? 1, 2. Okay. State your name.
Yeah, Christopher Barnes. I just wanna seed the conversation with a recognition that, it presents to me that we're quite close to the town having the opportunity to have title to a piece of property, but that they don't pay for it. That ACE is providing the funding for. In exchange for that funding, it's reasonable that ACE would be seeking something a lot more than a 5-year lease. Right? And the town's getting a lot. The community is, you have a nonprofit who's essentially buying an asset on behalf of the town. Obviously, it's not the town's in whole until the master lease is over, right? But that's quite valuable. And I just hope that that's part of this back and forth about like, how long should this lease be and everything else. It's like, well, they just bought it for $1 million. That ought to count for something. That ought to buy them more than 5 years. And it seems like that's getting lost in this. And the one other piece is, it might strike one that as a community, we have struggled to deal with maintenance and deferred maintenance on the existing town properties, right? The existing town infrastructure. And so a local entity, right, might be nervous where they look at all of those properties out the central, this building, the water system, as to whether they wanted their landlord, right, to be in control of those properties and doing that maintenance, right? Because of those competing priorities. Because it's not hard to envision a competing priority, right? That would start to tear at the fabric of that relationship. And so these dollars are buying the level of certainty, I think, is what people are seeking. And we're so close. We're so close right now to the win-win. I hope we don't lose sight of that. Thanks.
Good comment.
Great comment.
Yeah. I'm Creighton, and I really think the town's made a lot of, and Ace, the whole community's made a lot of dedicated communication. You know, Ace is your arts council by resolution since '97. This is your non-line item stepchild. You know, and not making it right or wrong. It's just you're one. It's one entity really by resolution. Secondly, you know, I love free things. Best things in life are free, and we have a very dedicated, compassionate community member that wants to bring some money to the table and buy a building that will still sit on the same piece of land and still serve its same function. And I used to vote in this town. I can't vote anymore because you can't. You have a PO box. And I think if I was a resident here, I would be really concerned about how the tax dollars are being spent if you have all these other projects. And I really value John and everyone's hard work here. I think why not take a gift course and let someone else carry the burden? Evan said that maintenance and other aspects could be covered by nonprofit tax deductible donations, hence even freeing up the town budget more. I know Paul can speak about the maintenance of shoveling. That's not an easy place. Some storms can take you 6 to 12 hours if we get an 80-inch storm, and it's a specific way to shovel. And Ace needs those things done immediately, you know, on a timely basis for that event. And you know, I'm just letting you know. And if you already have a maintenance problem, as we can see, this light's been out for 2+ months and still hasn't been able to change a light bulb. I don't think you really have the capacity to maintain the building if you buy it. And I respect you, and I really think you should take this gift course and let it run.
Could I just say one thing?
Right up there.
I know the routine now. Okay, my name's Paul Lippert, and I just want to tell you that the Dan's point about you can't guarantee what's gonna happen 20, 30 years down the road. I think the diocese selling it proves that, because who would have thought that they would right now want to sell it? My second point is, after talking with the Vicar General over the last couple of days, I've learned that a lot of their decisions were made on assumptions that weren't true, because they never bothered to ask. So I'm offering to any of you folks, if you want to know what happened over the 30 years there that I was involved in it, invite me to dinner, because I'm not going to give you the Cliff Note rendition.
We have Jerry Weil.
I just wanted to clarify something from when I was on the committee for the last attempt at a community center. With all the discussions we had over the course of 6 months, meeting weekly, the idea of who was going to maintain the building was never on anybody's radar screen. So that's really all kind of uncharted territory for you guys. If, you know, that's something that the town's going to take on. But in all that design talk of a building that's like, I don't know, probably 5 times the size of what ACE is, nobody ever thought about that. Oh, that's it.
Thanks.
So I think we're back in agenda item 4.
Jeez, list 4. Oh, discussion, okay. You know, Paul, to your point, you know, assumptions by the church. We're not responsible for any of their assumptions, and if there were assumptions that were not taken into account by the church on the part of ACE, we can't do that either, only ACE could do that. So I'm not trying to counter, but it's like, we don't have any control over what assumptions the church made.
I'm just saying that if they.
Paul, you can come up, I mean, well, or don't, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
It's just the way these things work.
No, you don't have to apologize, come on.
That's how we get it to recording, so we'll do this.
Sure.
Also, Roger, I've been online before. You can't hear anyone unless you're standing right there.
It's true. My point is that, sort of forgot what. Okay, my point is that if they made assumptions on misinformation and non-information, that you could also be in that same position. And I'm just opening up to you that I can give you that information, because just recently, me and Pawnee, with our talks with the Vicar General and the maintenance father and the bishop in person, we got thrown under the bus saying that we mismanaged it for the last 30 years. They actually complained to me that they thought we were paying under the table. They didn't know that I was actually billing the church for my services under my business insurance, my business certificates, so that we could avoid the insurance problems. So I'm saying to you, don't make those same assumptions about the building if you don't know the information, because that's just plain ignorance. And the diocese has already disappointed me. God doesn't, but men do.
I also just wanted to say, I know everyone keeps bringing up this maintenance and of our existing buildings. I've been on the council for, I keep losing track of, 11 or 12 years. And what a lot of people don't know is we made a pretty significant change in these last couple of years. The way that we used to have the structure of the town was we had a town administrator, and the mayor was more of an acting role in the town staff. And our town staff back then was stretched very thin. They were just barely getting by. We didn't have enough staff. They were dealing with a lot of legal stuff. And so there just wasn't a lot of discussion at that time about maintaining buildings. They were just trying to get by. In the last couple of years, we have, as this body, I mean, Dan wasn't quite part of that because he's only been here for a little bit, but we passed the town manager, position, and we had made it more official for the town manager to actually act more and take more responsibility to do those maintenance things and do all the things that had been getting missed over these last, 8 years. I'm not talking bad about the past town staff. They did the best that they could under all the things that they were dealing with, but we have recently made a change, and under Chris as a town manager, we are just now starting to talk about not just dealing with a budget on a year-to-year basis like we were with the old staff, but we were talking about, you see these budgets that John has talked about where we have like a 5-year horizon on our budget. We never had that kind of stuff before. We never had, plans to like actually build and repair stuff. And this is all really new for us as a town. And so, maybe some light bulbs haven't been changed or stuff like that. We are in the process of trying to figure all that stuff out because we have a new model that we've been operating on. John was a big part of getting that done for the town, and Chris and the staff have done a great job of kind of working that way instead of just getting by. We have a plan. But things do change, like a building or a piece of property just suddenly comes up out of nowhere. what if the shallow shaft suddenly came up to all of us and wanted to sell it? I mean, we would all be in the same position about like throwing our hands up in the air and trying to decide what to do. I mean, these things just sort of happen, but we have to think about them and take the time to think about them. So, I mean, in some ways, like, I know you guys see things with the buildings, but at the same time, it's something that, you know, at this point, I keep hearing about it, but it's like, we're trying to get to that point and we weren't able to get to that point before.
Can I say something about building maintenance? So, it's true, we've not invested in Alta Central in this building substantially, but we have invested.
Yeah, small things, yeah, we've done
Replaced
small stuff.
roofs, we've replaced some windows in Alta Central. We replace carpets, we paint walls, not very frequently. But we've been envisioning replacing this building since 2003. Like at the latest, if not before then, right? 2003 is the oldest document we have in our files with we hired an architect to do a feasibility study on a new building on this site. And I think a big reason why we haven't invested in this building is that by my count, that's 23, 22 years, we've assumed we're gonna replace this. So anytime, major needs on this building come up, or Alta Central, we say, well, we're gonna, we need to, why spend money on your old Subaru, Chris? Why don't you save for a new one? And, well, because I gotta get to work, and now, we're in a position with this building in particular where it has some really problematic issues, The post office is pulling away from the east wall. The back of the hillside behind the building is collapsing into the building. And so, we're really time's up, and when we own buildings, I assume we will budget to maintain them. And that's been a huge shift in perspective with this council that we are so fortunate for, that you recognize the need to fund depreciation, but that's not necessarily what we've started doing at this point. But we're gonna have to budget to maintain buildings, and we're gonna have to make a decision soon about replacing buildings, or do we stay the course and continue to operate one of these, buildings that would otherwise be end of life. So, and now we've got the plans in place to, if we're gonna make significant investment in existing buildings, we get a good roadmap for it. I'm not ready to recommend we do it, but, so I do think a big part of why we haven't made those investments is, yes, budgets are strapped, but also we just have been in that, don't invest in your old car kind of mindset.
I mean, it's also just, we never, until these last couple of years, we never talked about a long-term. I mean, it was one of the things when John came to the council, he was just surprised to see that we never had this long-term plan for our capital improvement projects, or we never had budgets that were forecasted out into the future. I mean, that is so new for the town, which is amazing that we've had that, these last almost 4 years.
Yeah.
But, like, that's just one of the things. Well, I've heard a lot of comment about the buildings and everything, but that is just kind of the boat that we were given, or like the situation we were given back in, these last couple of years, and we've been trying to remedy that situation.
It seems like we're at a point where, it's, the elephant, 800-pound gorilla in the room is deciding whether to try to keep Alta Central and do the 400 or 500 grand worth of improvements you take to prolong that life, so that we have the time to go ahead and build this building. The idea that we're gonna do both buildings is really a challenge for me, because I just don't think that's the right path for us. I think we should accept that we need to enhance Alta Central and try to get another 10 or 20 years out of it. And that'll give us breathing room to come and do this building. Those are huge projects. And I think when we worry about who's gonna run OLS, I say, well, shit, that just seems like not that important a thing. And if we can transfer that responsibility to ACE, that seems like the right step to me. I worry that, I think would be somewhat irresponsible to buy the building without a plan for what we're gonna do with it, with all due respect. So maybe that means that we're not at the decision point. The problem is everybody wants a decision from us. But I don't think buying the building without having a plan is a responsible thing to do. Just my 2 cents.
$1 million for a 30-year lease is only $33,000 a year or $2,700 a month. So that's not a lot of money over 30 years.
No, but they're assuming the burden of managing the building.
Yeah, but it's not that much money. I mean, it's a lot of money.
It's
like,
not
but
like,
it's like for the town, it's just interesting because you're talking about like $30,000 a year.
well, what's the management of the building worth for you though?
I don't know,
I think
John,
that's the other responsibility.
That's why,
We're not
with
gonna
all due
solve that
respect,
here.
sir, that I need to, it's like, it's a complicated question for me. Maybe after I investigate it more, I'll be like, wow, $1 million is so much money for a 30-year lease. I don't know. There's all these questions I have.
Yeah, I
I
wouldn't
don't-
do it for the $1 million.
I
I
can't.
would do it because Ace is gonna run the building and relieve the staff of that burden. I think the staff would do it if we asked them to. But I think because of all of these other things, there's a better use for staff time, and that's gonna be designing a new building for here. And assessing the OLS situation, or the Alta Central situation.
I think, and you've made that point very clearly and stated it a few times now to.
And I hope you don't
reinforce
see it negatively.
No, I don't see it negatively at all, but I mean, it is one of the data points and we keep coming back to it, but it's still just one data point. I think it comes down to a fundamental question, because you're reducing things to sort of basic fundamentals or foundational. Do all the people in this room believe the town can function and grow and plan for the future and execute or not? Because if you don't think we can do it, nobody should buy anything, we shouldn't spend any money, we should go back to what we did before, which is budget to a zero every year. I don't agree with that. And furthermore, I think it's not even possible because the town does exist. We are prioritizing the marshal's office after, I think now, we make a decision on a community center because it's critical to start moving forward, as you said, in a way that allows us to strategically meet the demands that are already here. Man, I spent a lot of time with the marshal. I like him because we're equally grumpy, but he's got all this insight that I don't have on how things function here. And we need to be prepared for things that are already happening and are overwhelming those people. And that's a public safety thing, and that's part of what we're doing. And I think this is a win for us to work with this. And in the spirit of what you're saying, John, I think I'm 100% about whatever responsibility Ace can take for the building and even take on more as time goes on. We can revise the lease. I'm all about the number 30s out there. I support that. I'll just say that over and over again. I would love to see Ace take on more of that because that's how a community that works together solves problems.
Yeah, I think that it's important to recognize, the nice thing about what you just said, for me, is that it recognizes the overwhelming public support and opinion that Ace control the building. Whether they own it or whether it's via the lease, all of these people, 98% of the comments have been, we want to see Ace end up in control of the building. And I personally would be uncomfortable with us ignoring that. And so what you're saying, Dan, I think is a step towards that and a recognition of the will of the people. And I think, it's just been, other people had smart children too. I think for us to think that we know better than the couple hundred people that have turned out for these meetings and made comments, I think I don't
agree with everything you just said though, because it's part of how you present things. 98% of the people with comments I got were not that Ace should buy the building, not 98%, but a majority certainly were. And in amongst those, what I got out of a lot of those emails, all of which I opened, were whether Ace owns it or the town owns it, what everybody really wanted, which is probably closer to 98%, is that Ace has stability and continues to thrive and serves the community. And so it's a matter of how you slice those things. So, I don't mind healthy debate, but I think, and then sprinkled in there, I am very sensitive to quiet voices. People who don't want to talk in public or are intimidated by things, I tend to try and listen to those people too. And they're a very minority. to your point.
There were some great dissenting comments, no doubt.
But they're-
I
but
read
they're-
every
but
one
they're-
that came in.
They're a minority. And-
Exactly.
and to the spirit of your comment about everything ACE. And it goes back to how the mayor set the tone, you know. We're all pro ACE. I write articles about ACE that extol the virtues. on occasion.
100% of the comments were pro ACE. There was
Yes.
not a single, there wasn't
That's true.
8%.
Right, that's
I know there were a couple of dissenting ones in there.
Against
Yeah.
ACE?
There were a couple of ones that said that either the town shouldn't buy the building or he shouldn't buy the building, one or two.
Yeah, but
There's a
everybody
couple-
supported the
yeah.
community.
Yeah, they all
Everybody-
supported ACE, there was a
Yeah,
couple
all
who thought
support-
the town should buy.
Yeah,
it.
exactly. There were a couple people that thought the town should buy it, but everybody was pro ACE, just to make that clear.
Okay. Yeah.
Roger, Estate,
I'd
did
like-
you wanna offer this discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to do that. I don't think in this few minutes, we're gonna work out exactly who maintains the building, because that's a pretty complicated question. And I'm reluctant to try to extend this thing further to resolve that. I think that we've probably aired the various considerations that go into this fairly significant issue. And, you know, the bottom line here is, are we going to buy the building or not? Is the town going to buy the building or not? And I feel that I'm ready to make that call for myself. If there's any other members of the town council who feel that we're not ready to make that call, please say so.
Well, I'm gonna vote against it because I think it's irresponsible for the town to purchase the building without having a plan as to what it's gonna do with it.
Okay.
So, that's just my personal opinion, and from the beginning, I've accepted that, you know, this may not go the way that I think it should go. You know, so, I'm not, you know, no huge heartburn over it not working out. But I can't vote in favor of it without there being a plan for how we're gonna run it. And I think that plan needs to involve ACE in a contracted material way, so. He knew it, that we're not gonna let ACE buy the building, that's disappointing. That to me would still be the best choice. But the lease situation, I think, gets me to a comfortable enough level that if we were supporting the lease situation for ACE, a long-term lease, we're gonna let them manage the building, which I think is in the town's interest. I could support the purchase, but with no commitment in that regard, I'm gonna vote against it.
Well, and since we're sort of arrived at that point, in expressing individual town council member, positions. I stand on the opposite end of that, obviously, there's a big shock, but because I do believe we have the plan in order to do what we say we wanna do. And details to be worked out later, because I think the two parties are exchanging information. Obviously, I'm voting pro buy the building, but goes back to the core, and I just only want to mention that because I think those are the two things that I think stand against each other and why we're on opposite ends of that.
I think if we were accepting the master leasing concept or saying that that's the way we're gonna go, I'd agree with you and I could vote for it.
But I'm with Carolyn, as a medical doctor, as well as somebody with a lot more experience doing this already, I don't know what that term means, and so I'm all about a 30-year lease. I don't know how that differs from a master lease or supreme executive
Yeah,
power.
it just
lease.
means that they would be in control of the building. I don't know, I thought the lease they sent was, which you guys I believe have. I read the lease, I thought it was good, fair. I had no comments on the lease actually. So
I can't, I'm not ready to, I can't comment on that yet.
Okay, Carolyn, are you ready to vote?
I am ready to vote, Roger.
And Elise, are you ready to vote?
Yep.
Okay, then I would like to call the question, which is this: shall the town of Alta make a firm bid to the diocese to purchase the building?
Somebody needs to
We
make
need
a
a
motion.
motion and a second, Mayor.
Okay.
But I think
But you can turn that
I have a
into that.
responsibility to be the guy who makes the motion then. I move that the town take a vote in order to make a purchase offer to the diocese per the discussed terms or as written on April 24th, 2025.
Do you wanna say action to authorize a real estate contract for the purchase of Our Lady of the Snows?
I would like
Is
to
what
say
you meant
that
to
I
say?
validate what you just said as the rest of my motion.
Yeah, I think she put
Does that
words in
work?
your mouth and they came out very nicely. All right, we need a second.
That accomplish it? Okay.
We seconded together.
Oh,
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
In that case, I believe that all discussion has been had here. So I'll call for the question. All in favor of?
We need to do a roll call, I'm sorry.
All right, okay. Shoot.
Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne,
No.
Councilmember Burke, or Mayor
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
thank you. Councilmember Morgan
Yes.
and Councilmember Schilling.
Yes.
The motion passes.
The only thing I can say definitively about what will be in 30 years is it won't include me. Okay.
Could the
I,
council direct,
I think
Okay.
that we,
I would love it if the council would maybe direct
Yeah.
staff.
I think that we
to
should
work
definitely-
with Alta Community Enrichment on the master lease concept that they presented to us.
I think that we definitely should have probably a work session. I don't know if we're gonna be able to roll this into the next town council meeting, but I think in the next week or two, I think we should try to get together with the board and ACE and talk about whether it's a master lease or a lease agreement. I don't know anything about master leases or like the legality of all that stuff, so until I get a little bit more briefed by our legal and lawyers and all that stuff, I think that I need to know more information before I can kind of make a call on
And I
that.
guess what I would like to do is that I wanna make sure that Ace and Sarah have the ability to plan for the next 6 months without any like heartache and so I think by saying, hey, Ace can continue to lease OLS in the same manner that they currently lease it from the diocese would give Sarah and team the time to plan and would also give us as council the time to appropriately digest all kinds of different things. So I don't know if that's like a motion that we can pass that.
No, it's
Or if
just
we don't
direction.
own it yet, I don't know, but
Or can we-
I wanna know that they can plan what they wanna plan without any heartache or turmoil or whatever.
For the May 31st deadline.
Can I be more direct than that? I'd like to direct the staff to actually start earlier than a week from now. I'd like you to meet with the ACE board and the executive director as soon as possible. Monday, if at all possible with both parties, because I would like to get the mechanics of the lease worked out and the length of the lease worked out. And to John's point, which is, I think really important, I just don't understand it. What a master lease, master lease, am
I wrote a little treatise of the difference between the two. I'm not sure whether you got it.
I did.
You know, I think it starts, when you talk about understanding the lease, it starts with reading it. And
Yeah,
so.
I scanned it when it showed up this afternoon, so.
Yeah, it was at 2:38.
Right, so it's not a lot of time to absorb that.
Way earlier than that, and it was requested by the town on Monday, so.
Oh, I just received it at 2:38 and I can't open it.
But that's less important than you guys finding the ground that starts it to get finalized. But it's less important that we are going through it, and it's more important that you and the staff are on top of it.
I mean, well, I think the hard part is we don't own the building, right? I mean, just because we made the vote doesn't mean we don't own the building right
Right.
this second, so
But we're
I
not
think.
gonna be for another month.
I think it's gonna take time. I do wanna try to make sure that whatever the process is, if it happens. I know the 31st is the deadline the diocese have given to shut the doors, and we don't want that to happen. So I don't know if this process is gonna take that long, or if it's gonna happen quicker than that, but that's my number one worry, is just getting that extended so that everyone can continue functioning the way they are. And in the meantime, yeah, we're gonna continue conversations about, you know, the future long-term lease, but I think, like I said, we don't own it, right, just because we voted on it, but we do need to like kind of wait for that time to pass before we can kind of start directing decisions about a lease. We can't implement one today, so it's gonna take time to kind of have those discussions.
But one of the things that the mayor provided to Ace was the continuation through the end of the year without any change. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes,
So
yes.
that allows, it gives us some breathing room so Ace can just move forward, and I think scheduling's a big, you know, of the facility is part of that process too. But I think that allows no change and buys us runway till the end of the year. I don't wanna advocate for taking that long, I'm just saying it relieves some pressure, but I want you guys to start working right away.
Will do.
Okay, any objections to adjourning? It being what, 5:30 there?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor?
Seconded already.
Okay,
Aye.
aye. All right, thank you very much, both council and audience.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah.
Roger. Thank you.
Guys still driving down tonight?
It's a plan.